After 10 Blade Sorcery lore videos, losing all my notes, and then getting them back, it's finally time to delve into the most important topic of Blade Sorcery. This video will cover the Dalgarians and the Kemenet. I was originally going to separate these topics into two separate videos, but I realized I would have to repeat a whole bunch of information in both of them, so it's best to just have this in one video. Before I start, I'd like to note that I have a Discord. It's linked at the top of the description. Please join. Thanks. The Dalgarians were obviously much more advanced than any culture on Baath today, and that is displayed no better than in the notes themselves. They don't actually write the notes, they just record them. And they do it by speaking to them. It doesn't record their voice in audio, but what they say actually gets etched into the stone as they speak, which I find really cool. When reading them back, it almost looks like a hologram, but I'm pretty sure it's just sorcery. The Dalgarians remind me a lot of the Dwemer from the Elder Scrolls series, with the whole ancient extinct race much more advanced than those today thing, and considering we know that the Baron is an Elder Scrolls fan, there's a good chance that they were inspiration. Anyway, Dalgarian inventions other than the notes include the inventory device, the crystal doors, the crystal transformer, and the obelisk we use to harness the power of the crystals at home. The Dalgarians were actually pretty civilized, as they had things like court to make sure that every Dalgarian is treated fairly. They also had insane architecture, if you couldn't tell. They would build arenas, houses, schools, and other buildings straight into the mountains of Aradin. They also built the PMN, which we will talk plenty more about later. The reason they are capable of things like this is because sorcery was normalized. They didn't just use it for combat, they used it for their day-to-day lives. But unlike the people from Rakta, who do the same thing, the Dalgarians didn't overuse, they found a balance of crystals. They were also like the Madine in that they used crystals for more than just consumption, whether that be as a light source or as a source of power. Factions like the Eye and the Wildfolk are trying to bring that back today, but none of them seem to be doing it just like them. The Dalgarians also had interesting names in quotes for sorcery. Jakarzan seems to be what they call sorcery as a whole, but here's what they call the individual crystals. Blessing of Devendorum. By the matter that binges and tears, Karin brings movement and sensation upon us. This is obviously the body crystal. Blessing of Zangalarim. By the force that collapses and moves, the Jakarzan brings structures and conflicts upon us. This is gravity. Blessing of Veolarum. The fire that consumes and births, the Jazakaran brings the cycle of life upon us. This is fire. Blessing of Kandalarim. By the lightning who enlightens and blinds the Jakarzan, brings minds and passions upon us. This is, as it says, lightning. Blessing of Menenberum. By the fractal cycles and branches the Jakarzan brings reasons and beliefs upon us. This is mind. The fall of the Dalgarians is actually pretty shrouded in mystery, but we do know that they were wiped out by Aradin because of how they use sorcery. Now, they really shouldn't have been able to do this, considering how powerful the Dalgarians were, but my theory is that they were wiped out right after the releasing of sorcery from Baath, which would mean their sorcery would have been pretty much useless. Also, something I want to note before I move on is that the Dalgarians were most likely just humans. But then again, it's up for debate because we don't really know what a Dalgarian looked like. So, let's get into the Kemenet and who we, the player, are. The story of the second Kemenet, as told by Tulshi, goes like this. Someone with great natural sorcery ability completes the 6 trials of Helcalis, which is Hector. Hector is actually a Dalgarian machine. This will be important for later. Anyways, after proving their strength and getting their 6th and final crystal, the door to the Minira Nar Kesovum, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, also known as the PMN, opens. They walk up the crystal-lined corridors and eventually reach their reward, the Sword of Na. Now, if the person that grasps the sword is truly the great and powerful Kemenet, then when they reach into the stone housing the sword is held in, they will be able to take and start wielding the sword. This sword has nearly unlimited potential in the hands of the Kemenet. This sword and the person who wields it will bring peace and power to Baath, unlike any seen before. The Kemenet is a hero, someone to be looked up to, someone to be. Now this sounds great, like, who wouldn't want to be the Kemenet? People from all over who are competent at sorcery will be testing their mettle to see if they are the Kemenet. But if you know what happened during the ending, then you probably see a massive hole in that story. And if you don't, I recommend you watch my ending explained video before continuing. It's only 3.5 minutes long, it's in the playlist. Anyways, that's simply not what happens. In the ending, we die to save Bieth. So, why would they lie about how it goes? Well, it's because the Kemenet doesn't exist. It's a made-up story by Talshi. Now, the reason behind him fabricating the story actually makes a lot of sense. Now, there is no Kemenet. While it is true that some people are born more competent in sorcery than others, there's no one born abnormally powerful with a destined to wield the Sword of Na. And on the topic of the sword, it was never actually meant to be a sword. The sword is actually just a rod that needs to be pulled in order to start the sacrificial process. Them making it a sword is just to entice those hungry for power. The whole myth is them enticing powerful people. No one who has lived their whole lives chasing power would just want to die. The releasing of magic from Baath requires somebody with sorcery running through their veins, so someone powerful being sacrificed is crucial. Earlier I mentioned that Hector is a Dalgarian machine. He's powered by sorcery, and the reason they constructed him is to make sure that no one who isn't powerful can get to the PMN, which is also surrounded by a massive storm to keep people from sailing there. Them setting up the idea that you don't know if you're the Kemenet until you grab the sword is actually pretty smart. Now, you may be asking, then why do we eventually do what the Kemenet is supposed to do if we aren't them? Well, it's because we were chosen for the job by the Dalgarian Preservation Society. They ran through probably hundreds of candidates who were promised power, and we just so happened to be the most adept in sorcery, so we were chosen. The act goes so deep that the Baron is actually in on this, as after being booted from his clan of outlaws and being hunted by a powerful leader of one of the different clans, he was promised safe passage out of Araden by the DPS if he was to help us on our journey. He most likely gets no other customers. Overall, it's a rather noble and necessary lie. I mean, without it, they all would have gone extinct a long time ago. Thanks for watching. This Blade & Sorcery lore video is probably one of my last ones. I've got 2 more that I need to finish, and then that's most likely it for these videos. I still plan on making Blade & Sorcery content, but there is simply not much more notable lore to go over. I have a Discord if you'd like to come and talk to me about Blade & Sorcery or anything really. It's linked at the top of the description. And again, thanks for watching.